So hi everyone, so today we're going to talk about one key thing that could stop you from getting the most value out of your Agile approach. So super valuable for a lot of you here because a new report suggests that 86% of software development teams are working in Agile. But one thing I'd note from my experience is a lot of organisations do Agile in the building of the software, but not Agile in the way that they operate and support that software. So for me, that really does contradict the fundamental Agile principles. It means you won't get the benefit of the faster time to market, or the higher quality of products, or even more reliable services with fewer incidents, and even happier dev teams. If you want a quick refresh on the 12 Agile principles from the Agile Manifesto, then just click in the description. I don't want to read them out to you, you're likely to know them anyway, but just have a look if you want a quick reminder. So many teams are Agile in the way that they build software, and you'll see teams following methods such as Scrum or Kanban, and in really good development teams, you'll also see practices such as XP practices being followed. But this actually can be quite bookended by few iterative practices before development starts, and even more so, a handoff to a separate team for ops and support. This handoff really does contradict Agile. So the handoff is called an ops run-it model, where you will have a separate team building a service from running and operating that service. In comparison, there's a you build it, you run it, where one team will build and support the application involved. So when you have this handoff in place, it's difficult to get the full benefits of being Agile within ops run-it. And here's 5 reasons why. The first reason why it's difficult to get the full benefits of Agile in an ops run-it model is that ops run-it doesn't really allow for the continuous delivery of software, because there's often a gap between the building of that software and then the subsequent deployments and running of that software. So if you want to find out a little bit more about continuous delivery, I'd recommend heading over to Dave Farley's channel called Continuous Delivery, and you'll find some really good videos and content over there that can explain some of the concepts. So let's look at an example of where a financial organisation has this in place. So if you look at in a financial organisation, you can see that often you'll see a separation in the deployment team, or even an instigation of a CAB meeting to get approval. And this is to ensure you've got a glass wall between the people who build and the people who run it, and that forces that manual handover. It also does contradict that goal behind continuous delivery. And sometimes I've seen arguments as legislative reasons for this. But I've also seen many really good financial organisations achieve exactly the same result, but with an automation of the pipeline to production and compliance as code. So the second reason why it's difficult to get the full benefits of Agile in an ops run-it model is that ops run-it doesn't support frequent iterative delivery of features. And ops run-it often has that fixed cadence release gates, often on a monthly or even a quarterly basis. And what you see is teams end up building to those release gates rather than releasing features as and when they're ready. So an example of this is a large government department that may have scheduled a quarterly release in. And this means that teams are building to those gates, often trying to squeeze things in at the last minute. Otherwise, they have to wait until the next gate, which is a quarter away, in order to get things in and ready. So the more that we look to try and remove those gates based on time, and instead have gates based on when a feature is ready, that will more align us to Agile principles. You build it, you run it will certainly help us here, particularly with the removal of those gates, and instead implementing something based on a pre-approved change approach. So the third reason why it's difficult to get the full benefits of Agile in an ops run-it model is that ops run-it doesn't really facilitate autonomy and motivation and self-organising teams. This is because teams can never really truly own their products. They inevitably have to hand them to a separate team for operations and support once that build is complete. So when you hand off, there's no inherent motivation to build reliability contingencies into your software because you're not on the hook if there's a service failure. And there's examples of this I've seen where you've had teams that are so focused on delivering features quickly that they are less focused on the reliability of that service, making that someone else's problem. As a product delivery team within an ops run, your motivation is to deliver more features, putting more pressure on the team that's running the service. And that really does compound the issue, because what you then end up is more issues with that service, which makes it harder to get more changes through on that service. In You Build It, You Run It, you're responsible for the reliability of the service as much as the throughput of new features. So you're more motivated to ensure that you build reliability in from the start. So the fourth reason why it's difficult to get the full benefits of Agile in an ops running model is that it's really difficult for the product team to reflect on and refine what it is they've built, because they've had to hand that over after they've built it. So examples is that it's difficult to reflect and respond on the needs of the customers because they're not close to who's using that service. They don't have any visibility of the incidents that are occurring. In an ops team, that team is seeing and feeling the pain of that incident, and they're often applying short-term fixes or patches just to restore the service quickly. The product delivery team are not seeing the impact of what it is that they've previously built. And without seeing that impact, they then can't make the priority calls on what best serves the customer. They also can't mitigate against any of that occurring on future features that they're building, so they can't incorporate that feedback into their current backlog of work. What this results in is product teams continue to build features despite the fact that actually some incidents may be more valuable to resolve for customers and the organisation to actually fix. So the fifth reason why it's difficult to get the full benefits of Agile in an ops run-it model, in my experience, ops run-it models can contribute to a culture of a fixed mindset, making it difficult to reflect and adapt over time. And this then shows up in many different ways as quite a reactive culture within your development teams. Ops run-it really does perpetuate that fixed mindset, and it does that in three different ways. The first one is the inability to be able to change your processes. So the product team is only in charge of one part of the process, the build, and the ops team is in charge of the release and run. So the control to change the process of a whole isn't really there. The second part is that there's low levels of inspection and adaptation, and this comes from finding issues only when they happen versus trying to predict incidents before they actually occur, or mop-ups only occurring after an incident has happened versus practicing a disaster with things like chaos days. There becomes a mindset of always doing it this way versus always looking for ways to improve. The third reason is that throw over the wall effect. You see the behaviours of it being a my fault, your fault approach. And all of this is caused by those enforced boundaries between the build and the run of the service. So there are instances where ops running does make sense. And this is when you've got a much lower requirement for throughput of change, or you have a very low financial exposure if your system fails. But those instances are rare. And the reason for that is that the systems that have those characteristics are often core foundational systems and not digital services. But that doesn't preclude you from being able to work in an agile fashion and having those agile principles elsewhere in the way in which you work. You just need to find the way that adopts best for you, your service, and your organisation. So there you have it. If you're not taking an agile approach to both development and operations, you're really depriving yourself of the real tangible value that an agile approach can bring. As always, remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel for plenty more insights into You Build It, You Run It, and that will help you get the best for your teams.